Welcome everyone to the Nitty Gritty. We are back and we have Tyson Henderson with us today. Tyson, thanks for coming, man.
Thank you guys for having me. This is great.
So in case you don't know Tyson is a world famous videographer. He has traveled the world. He's done some really cool stuff. He was just showing us a cliff jump he did in the Amalfi Coast, right?
That's right.
And how tall was it?
It's probably 90 feet. It grows every year.
It's like a fish. Yeah. It gets bigger every time you tell it.
So. That's in Italy, by the way, for those of you that don't know.
Yeah.
For you uneducated peasants.
Yeah.
I just had to ask like 5 minutes ago where it was, so I thought I should clear it up for you all.
So, Tyson, your background on the video world, you started making videos, and then you worked with Devin Supertramp.
Correct.
For a while.
Which is where we were filming. I was with Supertramp when we were in the Amalfi Coast.
Okay.
So.
Has anybody ever tell that guy that name kind of sounds like an adult entertainer name?
That's a first. No, most people
Supertramp?
Where that came from. But no, that's the first. Yeah. No.
See, I'm a pretty original thinker.
You would come up with that.
Yeah, I am. I'm also immature. I'm sorry.
So you did that. How long did you work with Devin?
I was with Devin for about almost 4 years.
Okay. For those who don't know what Devin does, if you don't follow him on YouTube, what types of videos were you creating with him?
Extreme out of the box wild videos, just taking like ideas and taking them as far as they could go. Like probably the craziest one we did was a slip and slide out of an airplane. So you hear that and you're like,
whoa,
okay,
what?
So that's the kind of scale of the videos. That was actually the last video I helped with before I moved on.
Let's spend a little bit of time on that. A slip and slide out of an airplane?
Back of an airplane.
Wow.
We've got a C-47, C-130, I think.
C-130, yeah.
C-130. Got a slide that fit perfectly, and I mean, you guys can go check it out. But
it's just off the back of that dropping.
And then that thing comes down
hold.
and we'll just send it out. And I was the guy that was in the plane filming. So I'm locked in and I'm just running down the slide and then watching them just go.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we did.
So you were jumping out of planes a lot.
I never jumped. No, still haven't. In fact, I need to. My wife needs to hear that. It's like something that I need to do. I got married and she's like, no way. But I do enough cliff jumping that it should be okay.
Oh, we have the video pulled up there. Just right there.
You can see people just getting sent.
How did Devin find you? I mean, because you were just kind of making videos as a kid, right? When you grew up, like kind of pre-YouTube, it wasn't super popular, but you just were like, I'm going to start making videos.
Yeah, my mom was always like, you need to find what you love to do. And so at a young age of, I think 16, I was in a video class in high school and I just immediately fell in love with editing, which is pretty unique. Most people hate editing. I actually love it. Filmmaking came along with that. And so I told my mom, I was like, this is what I want to do. She bought me a computer. I mean, she invested in me. So she bought me a computer, a camera, and I just went for it. You know, I just went full send, I guess, as the kids say.
Yeah. The kids say. Send it. Gotta send it.
Still gonna send it.
How old were you, when this happened?
I think I was a junior, so what is that, 16, 17 years old, when I was like, this is it. But before that, I was like filming things with my friends. I got a whole bank of videos of just friends. We would do stupid stuff.
So your mom already knew that you were into it, so.
Yeah, it was like, it was more just like, I didn't, at that time, 15 years ago, that wasn't a career that like people, unless you're going to go into the film industry and work on features and documentaries and things like that. So it's changed a lot since then, but yeah, that was like, I want to do this. And it was kind of, I mean, I even talked to my friends to this day and they're like, when I saw you doing that, they're like, I didn't think you could make that make a career out of that because it wasn't a thing at that time. And then I saw Devin Supertramp and what he was doing, and I was like, that's what I want to do, whether it's YouTube or just professionally, and I just loved it, so I've been doing it ever since.
I feel like we're in a day and age where if you're passionate about something, you can make a career out of just about anything. Yeah, because there's so much reach now, you know, with the internet and everything else.
Literally anything.
Even barbecue, it's been around forever. Who would have ever thought just cooking in my backyard, right? It's crazy. And so, but you were ahead of your time, because I would look at video and like coding back then is, man, if you were into that stuff for fun, you had no idea how big of a payoff it would be, because now we are in like videos, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm grateful I got in when I did, because it's a very, very saturated industry now.
For sure.
Everyone can have a camera. I mean, even your iPhone takes amazing video that you can do anything with a camera. And so, yeah, I got in a little bit early, and I guess I'm kind of one of the OGs, especially in Utah.
Right.
A lot of the younger kids are looking to.
So like skill set, like what makes a videographer good? Is it the ability to edit the footage, or is it like the creative eye on how to get the angles? You know, like I guess I've never really thought about that as what really like helps someone stand apart.
Yeah. So skill is huge. It takes a lot of skill and just time. But one of the biggest things that will never go away with videos is telling a story, being able to craft a story. People can be a good videographer, but if there's no meaning behind it, people get kind of bored and you won't, I guess, get noticed as much. And I learned that, pretty late. I was always just about the pre-shots. I think that's a lot of the stuff we did at Supertramp was just pretty fun, amazing shots without a lot of story. And so it takes skill because you've got to be able to compose an image on your camera. You got to be able to do the settings, and then editing. That's interesting because it takes a lot of time. You just have to spend that 10,000 hours, as they say, and just do it, because you're just going to start, as you're going through footage, you just start to like, as you see something, you're like, okay, this would be cool. But like 5 years before, I wouldn't have thought that. So it's like spending time just watching footage over and over and making videos. You just learn and get better.
Yeah.
I get mad just trimming videos on my iPhone.
Yeah, that's
like
annoying.
Just trying to get it to the,
that's tedious.
Like I just want to take this little bit off. Could you imagine sitting in front of all those buttons and all the different things that they have to do? And
that's what it becomes, a keyboard.
Right.
My wife watches me edit, and she's just like, what are you?
You don't have to think anymore.
And I'm just.
That's crazy.
And then I do something real quick, and she's like, "How did you even think to do that?" And I'm like, "I didn't think to do it. I just did it because it's now subconscious, and I've done it long enough."
Well, and to your point about like learning how to tell the story, that's kind of what took you to what you're currently doing, right? You left Devin Supertramp, and now you are kind of the creative director in charge of the brand, that story for Nomadic.
Not just kind of.
Not kind
That's
of.
my title.
That is what you
I'm
are.
the creative director. Excuse me?
Get it right, Andrew.
That's on me. I should have clarified that. No, I'm just kidding. No, so I'm the creative director now at Nomadic. They headhunted me, saw my stuff on Instagram, followed me. They actually sent me a bag before I worked for them as an influencer, I guess, just to post about it. And loved the bag. And then
bags are amazing. If you don't know what Nomadic bags are, go check them out because they're incredible.
We're owners.
They literally are the best. No joke. The quality is amazing. And I actually reached out to them to sponsor a trip. Me and my wife were going to go on to Japan just for fun. I had family out there. I actually had a sister out there that we can talk about later. A little tease, but I had a sister in the military, so we were like, let's go out to Japan and see her, and we were like, let's try to get it funded. So we reached out to a few companies, and Nomadic was one of them because we were big fans, and they were all on board. So I made one video, but before they even saw that video, the owner reached out about doing some videos, and I responded thinking I'd do some videos. And when I got in the interview, we quickly learned it was a good fit for both of us, and he offered me a full-time position. And in that time I was like, no, I kind of just want to start a business, which I think worked because they hire a lot of entrepreneurs at that company and people that are very driven. And so he saw that in me and was like, maybe you're not interested, but I want to give you an offer. And I was like, of course. Yeah. And so he gave me the offer, and I would be stupid not to take it. And so I took it, and I've learned a huge part of the film industry I didn't know until I worked for Nomadic, which is just promoting products online this day and age with Instagram and Facebook, and how important that is to business now.
Meaning like promotion is like how to tell the story of a promotion, or just like how to push a product in general?
Yeah. And that's the other thing, like stories are important, but when you're trying to grab people's attention on Instagram, you have 0.3 seconds. The story doesn't matter. What comes later is the brand, and that's the story. Before that, it's just getting customers in the door. And so it's about that imagery. And I learned a lot of that through Devin Supertramp. And so that's translated into how to grab people's attention online. And the ads that I've created for Nomadic have converted like crazy good. And that has only helped my career and kind of getting noticed by other companies and things like that. So yeah.
Just so we all understand, converted means what?
Money.
Right. Sales, right?
Sales. Everything in life is about sales. I don't care who you are.
That's right. Marriage. Everything.
You're selling every day.
Everything.
You're always selling. In fact, guys, I'm selling you right now on me.
That's
for sure.
True. You are.
For sure.
And our audience.
We're already sold.
I hope so. I hope
we're
that
sell your audience now.
We're already purchased.
We're all in sales, whether we want to be or not.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I mean, as far as other videos you've done, at least to my knowledge, your Super Tramp videos got tons of views, but something you done on the side, your proposal video.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 8 million views.
Yep.
On YouTube.
Yep. Those were the days I was trying to be a Devin Supertramp. Like, and I didn't realize how important it is to like figure out something that you're good at and unique at, and not try to copy people and try to become people. And that's super important in all aspects of life. But like, I wanted to be do what Devin Supertramp was doing. And so there's a lot of videos, if you go to my early days, that are very similar to his. I just was like, well, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Let's just do what he's doing. But then you learn, and a lot of people on YouTube learn, you have to be unique. You have to do what you are good at. And I did my proposal video just because the other ones weren't taking off, and it was kind of a documentary style, and it just took off. And I learned quickly that was a little niche, and so I went after it, and I did like, I think 15 more proposals after that, and they all did super well. And that's kind of my YouTube channel's kind of gained that audience. But branching off of that, we got a lot of positive requests from our proposal saying, you guys need to start a vlog channel. At that time, 4 or 5 years ago, that was pretty new still, even though at that time it felt like I was way late. So I started a vlog channel with my wife, and we pretty much just, we're not like extremely passionate about it. It's just like our way to journal and document our life. And I'm obsessed with like not losing memories, because I have those memories now, and it's so fun to go back and watch. So I will film a lot just to keep those memories, especially now that I have 2 boys and documenting their lives. So it's more about documenting their lives, less about views and becoming a YouTuber.
Yeah.
You've come a long way. I saw an older video. I think it was from 2008.
Oh no.
It was a music video.
You went deep.
I went deep. So yeah, you've really improved.
Yeah, what you're talking about, the music video that I made.
Yep.
Yeah. That was my first upload to YouTube, actually, and I think it got 200 views in the first week. And
You're
I was
like
246. I'm famous.
Yeah,
246,
yeah.
46 in the last
jumped.
10, 12 years. That's great.
It's jumped 25% in the last 10 years.
That's my true claim to fame. That's actually on a different channel. So if anyone's looking for that, you gotta go deep.
We all got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's important that you talk about like finding that passion, and doing things that makes you different, and just doing it, right? But I want to kind of rewind the clock a little bit, maybe tell the story how we're even sitting here today. Right. So we have a mutual friend, Jared, aka Gold Yeller.
Gold Yeller.
So shout out to Gold Yeller.
Thanks for putting this together, brother.
So Jared has been awesome with the podcast. He's always texting me saying, hey, you need to go talk to so-and-so, or you need to get so-and-so on your podcast. And he was out at Vid Summit, right?
In LA, yeah.
In LA. So he's like, you need to meet Tyson. He needs to come on the podcast. So we got together. What did he tell you? I mean, maybe give a little background into that, on why Jared, how you met Jared, and kind of how that got us to where we are today.
Yeah, so we're not here to talk about my videography skills, as important as those are. I think it's important because that's who I am, but it's the past and what I've done to get to this point that is, I think, more important, and the whole reason I'm here, because it's pretty interesting, and it's something I never tell people. A lot of people, I think, have kind of figured it out through the, just things I've posted, or just like reading between the lines, but at the same time, I've never told this story, especially to an audience.
Never told, literally, there's probably, you could count on
only a
both
few
hands,
people. Well, for
one hand that know the whole story.
Even some of my best friends don't know the story.
Yeah.
My wife obviously knows the story. My family knows the story. People that I may have grown up, I think I grew up with, like early days, just like would know, but no one knows the nitty gritty of those stories. It's so easy to incorporate your name into this. It's because there's a lot of nitty gritty for sure.
So in LA, so you meet Jared, yes. Gold Yeller. He comes up to you, kind of like stalker, creeperish.
Totally. And if you see Jared, he's got his hat low and his beard,
jersey,
and his hair hanging out. He's wearing some kind of jersey,
some
right?
kind of jersey.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a conversation, and I notice a guy, peripheral vision, stop and just stare at me. And I don't look at him.
Was he breathing heavy or anything?
Not yet.
Okay, well, that's good.
we go, not yet. But I was standing there talking, and then he goes, "Are you Sadie's brother?" And I'm like, my first thought is, what? Like, how do you know Sadie, and how the heck do you know that she's my sister? And so a lot of thoughts were going through my mind at that point. And I was just like, so I just said, yeah, how do you know Sadie? And he's like, well, she was my TA at Boise State when she ran track there. And so I was like, that's great. So we got chatting about her. And as we got talking, I'm just the whole time going, how do you know she's my sister? And what do you know? How much do you know? And so, it was a 3-day thing. And so the next day he came back and we started chatting up again about other things. And then the third day finally came around and he started getting a little more detailed with Sadie. And I started to wonder a little more about what he knew. So I just said, dude, I need to know what you know. Like, I just want to I want to talk to you about my story because it sounds like you know a little bit. And so he's like, well, I don't know a ton. And I'm like, well, how much do you know? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, just say one word. I just need to hear one word. And I'm trying to get him to say it before I ask. Like, just say the word. And so I was like, just say one word and I will know how much you know. And he goes, okay. Kind of hesitates. He's like, polygamy. And I was like, okay, you know enough. That's all you need to know.
That's the magic word.
For me to basically open up this story. And so Jared was one of the third person I've told this story in the last 2 years. And before that, never told this story except to my wife. I never saw a reason to. I just kept it to myself. But from the last 2 years, year and a half, I felt like I needed to start sharing this story. I feel like I just think it's important. And when I tell people, the reaction's pretty cool. It's like they're just blown away. They're really encouraged in some sense. And they're just like, this, that's an amazing, very, very unique story that no one really knows. And so
do you feel like it's been the reason you want to tell it? Is it more almost therapeutic for you to finally feel like you can share it? Or is it more of I think there's someone this might help?
Yeah, that's a good question. I never have done it to think I'm going to help someone by telling them this story. I feel like it's a huge part of my life that has shaped me into who I am and the reason I'm the way I am, especially with my wife and my kids. And so it's kind of like that journey that got me to this point that I want to tell. And whether people relate to it, rarely, no one's going to relate to the things I went through. A few people might, but it's very unique. And so so it's the journey, and it's maybe people can find bits and pieces through that journey that they can relate to, whether it has to do with polygamy or not. So I feel like it's time to tell the story. The main reason that I feel like I can is because that chapter has officially been closed in my life. I feel like it's a new page, and I can just move on from a lot of the things that went down. And so I just that's kind of the biggest thing is I feel like I can finally tell the story because there's an ending. Yeah, my life's continuing and there's a lot still going on in my life, but I just, I think it's time to just tell this story, especially because when I do tell people, they react pretty cool. Before it was I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be, have a bad image on myself because that's not who I am, but it's just a part of who I've become. That's for sure.
What was the closing of that chapter? What was that event that kind of closed that book, that page, and allowed you to kind of do that?
Yeah, so about 1.5 years ago, I got an Instagram out of nowhere. This was on Christmas Eve, so almost 2 years ago. That's crazy. I got a DM on Instagram from my aunt, who I don't remember the last time I talked to her, and it says, "Call me ASAP. You're going to be hearing from your grandma soon." And I'm like, I never hear from my grandma unless it's on my birthday. She put her phone number in the message, and so I just called right away, not thinking much of it. Maybe she wanted to talk about Christmas tomorrow, and she's crying, and she's like, "There's no easy way for me to say this to you, so I'm just going to say it. But your dad has shot and killed himself." And I'm just like, and it was such a weird experience because my dad hasn't been involved in my life for a little while. To me, he's already was kind of dead to me. As horrible as that sounds, it's the truth. I put him behind me. I put that. It just was there's no reason I need to care about him. And it was just such a weird feeling for me to have him be actually gone. And so that's kind of the whole reason I feel like I can tell this story now, is because that's behind me and that's the chapter. Let's close that, move on with my family, my kids, and push forward. So I feel like leading up to that ending, I guess, a lot of things happened and kind of shaped me into the guy that I am today.
So if we go back, you grew up in a polygamous household, right?
Yep.
You had your dad and your mom, and your mom was your dad's first wife.
Yes. And just a brief history on why they were in that religion. My mom and dad were both actually born into an LDS family. And then my dad went on a mission, and my mom, her family converted before she turned 8. So she was never baptized into the LDS church. She was like, I don't know, probably 5. So they converted. She's the youngest of a bunch of siblings. And then my dad was on a mission. His family converted to this church, and which is the All Red group. So there's probably a better name for it. I know there is. I don't remember it, but we refer to it as the All Red group.
I'll look it up.
Anyway, so my dad comes home from his mission. His family's now in this church, which I think at that day and age, it's a little easier to live that lifestyle. There's not social media, it's not. So he's probably, now thinking back, I think he went into it for the wrong reasons. But he converted and then went out there and met my mom out there. And she was probably 15, I think 16 when they met. And they dated for a little while. Ended up getting married out there. And so immediately after my mom and dad got married, my mom got pregnant with me. And then right after, like, she got pregnant, they got married, he was ready for the next one. Like, where's my second wife? And started pursuing, I don't know who and when or how that went. I don't know the details. Ended up getting a second wife while my mom was pregnant with me. And that's kind of where that started.
So what I found so far is Apostolic United Brethren. Because it says the All Red group. They call it the priesthood, the group, the work.
Yeah, there's the group. There's so many branches off of that, and they are just one of them. Like, you've got the Warren, the Jeffs, there's just a lot, like Mussers, and that are all branches off of the manifesto that happened in 1884, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And they all just disagreed on a lot of things, and so they all just slowly came apart. You would never know that we were polygamists. We didn't dress like the traditional polygamists look. And so if you've seen Sister Wives, the show, that he was actually in my church. And so he looks like normal guys and normal wives. And but you go to their house and it's like, oh, they are polygamists.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of wives and kids. And so, yeah, that's.
So how would you think your relationship, like with your dad, how is it different? I mean, I guess you wouldn't know because you didn't grow up another way, but for someone who didn't grow up in a polygamous household, like, what do you think the difference is between the relationship with your dad as a polygamous father and your dad if he would have just had one wife?
Yeah. So first off, like, I have one wife. We all have one
Smart
wife.
man.
It's hard enough. Yeah. We love our wives, but it's hard. And so I can't even imagine. But growing up with a dad that had another wife to take care of and another family, they take turns. But we did live together. That we were small enough. We were small enough family that she lived with us, and that's like later though, because I don't remember those days. But like, yeah, I had to share my dad, which is fine. And the cool thing about it is that I have a sibling my age, and I have 4 siblings from my mom and 4 siblings from her, and we all are the same age. So it was growing up with a friend. We had our best friends. Yeah, we're all super tight, and just had a great family.
Your relationship with your siblings, would you consider it like a normal relationship with siblings?
100%. Yeah. And even the second mom, like, she was my mom. Like, how great is that though? Like, if you think about it, my mom can like go somewhere and not have to find a babysitter because the other mom's there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
So it's like, it's actually kind of cool.
Either.
Like, in a way, it just, man, that'd be hard as a dad or
Yeah.
a husband to live like that. And I still have a lot of family that do, and it's not easy, and they'll tell you, and that's part of it. And that you learn a lot about yourself, and it's like anything in life. You go into it, and you have to get rid of jealousy. You have to get rid of a lot of things that we're not supposed to feel, envy and things like that. So
when did you feel like your relationship with your dad start to change? Because I would assume, like, when you were young, you probably either don't remember, or it was a more traditional type relationship.
Yeah.
When do you think it started to change?
For the bad?
Yeah.
So I was always my dad's favorite. My second mom always jokes about it now. Like she's like, you were such a punk when you were a kid. And you got away with everything because you were your dad's favorite. I was the oldest. And so I felt like I had a good relationship with him. We went hunting, and like, those are some good days. Like when I think back, like that was my dad, and we had a lot of fun. And I have a few moments where I just like have that feeling of like fatherly son love that I never felt later. And so it started to, I don't think it ever really changed. It's just the fact that he divorced my mom.
Was there a time
he divorced everyone? He just decided.
Right. Like piggybacking on what Andrew asked, was there a time that you remember where you started, that you ever thought maybe this is weird or this is different?
Yeah. That took a while. I think that I was a little older when I figured that out. We were always raised that we were part of the LDS church, that we were the same. We're the same, and they, and one day we'll be united. And so I always kind of never thought I stood out. I was just like, I kind of owned it. And it wasn't, I just remember one experience with a friend. I was like, it was 6th grade, and I was like telling him, I was like, do you want to come to my birthday party? But I have to tell you, I've got, we're polygamists. And he's like, oh yeah, who cares? Like, I'll come. Like, we're 6th graders.
Is that like one of the first times you told someone that you were a polygamist?
That I can remember. Yeah. It was a very distinct moment that I just remember that. I'm sure I did before, but, and so then I'm like, cool, he's coming to my party. And then I find out he can't because his parents said, no, you're not going to go hang out with the polygamist family. Like, what the heck? And I just thought that was so weird. And then that's when I started to notice things are a little different.
Did they teach you to try and hide the polygamy? Like inside of the polygamous community, was it an era of like secrecy? We need to keep this hush hush. We don't want people knowing about us.
Yeah. Well, because it is illegal, you are taught to be secretive about it. You don't talk about it. If you have friends over, you go, you don't let them know when you go, you have to go to your other mom's house to grab something. Like you keep it a secret, and it was always that way. Back before social media, it was easier, we could keep it a secret. And so, I just grew up.
So how would you do that though? Like if friends came over, did friends not come over often?
No, they did. So, see, that's what's crazy is when my dad left when I was like 10 or 11. So up to that point, my friends were who I had at home, and our neighbors all knew. We were in Draper, pretty close to IKEA.
That was the next question I had, is like, that's the difference. Like it's not like you're living in Colorado City, right? So you're just in a normal neighborhood.
Right there by IKEA. And we had a 3-level house. Each level had a house in it. And so, that's to tell you, my dad got a 3rd wife eventually. And, we were in a cul-de-sac, and we actually lived.
So you were living at the time your dad had 3 wives, and each wife had their own family on a level of the house.
Yeah.
So one house, top floor 1 wife, middle floor 1 wife, bottom basement 1 wife. Okay.
And we were the main level.
Okay.
And anyway, we lived next door to my cousins who also were polygamists, and my dad's brother. He had, I think, 3 or 4 wives, and I had a lot of cousins over there. We lived next to each other.
Wow.
And it was fun, like night games, like even our neighbors that were like next to us that just didn't care. When you get to know us, you're just like, it's so stupid that it's even like, just like we're just normal people, and we just happen to live what the church used to live 100 years ago. It was told to stop practicing it right now. And so, man, night games, Saturday nights, weekends, they were so fun. Like some of the best times was just with friends and things. So I never thought about it. When I was in 6th grade, I was 12?
Yeah.
So before that, it was like we had this community in our neighborhood that just didn't care. And we were all friends with everyone there, and maybe they did, and I was too young to care, especially the kids. They didn't care.
Yeah. So your dad, you growing up, your parents end up getting divorced. So your dad divorces your mom. Yeah. How old were you when that happened?
I was 10 or 11, so something like that.
Close to the same age then.
Yeah. I just remember, I didn't get it, but I just remember my dad just walked out with a bag of clothes, a couple garbage bags of clothes. And it was just a weird time. It was just like, I didn't get it. It was too young to like know really what was happening. I just knew he was leaving, especially my siblings. They barely remember anything. But there was a lot of nights I would sit up in my bedroom and listen to him scream at my mom. He was super mentally and emotionally abusive on my mom. Never physical, but he was he messed with her mind. He made her feel very bad about herself a lot. And he did the same thing with his second wife. She was a little more strong-headed, and she wouldn't take his crap like my mom would. And my mom, way strong now, but she was young. Like he's all she knew, you know, growing up. And so he messed with her, and the whole
at a young age, it's crazy that you were recognizing that.
Yeah. And I just remember thinking, I just remember thinking this isn't right. And I was always there for my mom. I was always kind of she always calls me her rock, being the oldest. And so there's even a time when I was cutting out pictures for Christmas. We were all upstairs with my siblings, and we're going through magazines, having a great night. And for little did we know, we were told to go up because my dad was going to have a word with his wives. So sat them all down in the living room, and I'm excited with my paper that I've pasted all my pictures on, and I have gifts that I want for Christmas. And I go running downstairs, and I'm getting to the bottom of the stairs, and they're just around the corner, and I just hear him screaming at my mom's. And then all of a sudden I hear a shoe just get flung across the room and smack into the wall. And those are like the little moments that I have where I just knew it wasn't good. And I didn't realize how bad it was. It was a lot worse than I think I knew, because of, you know, I'm being hidden from a lot of that stuff. So he ends up getting divorced. He divorced all your moms, right? So yeah,
he kind of walks away from everybody.
He walked away from his first two.
Okay.
So my mom and his second wife. And then the whole reason behind it, and I don't know a lot of the details, but he started dating a really young girl, a 16-year-old, and wanted to pursue her. They wanted to get married, and that church was like, heck no, she's too young. And
how old was your dad at this time?
Probably like 35.
Holy crap.
35, 40. Somewhere between there, but they were like, no, you're not doing it. And she was actually cousins with his third wife. And so they were on the same page with it. They're like, yeah, let's do it. And then, but my mom and the second wife were like, heck no, she's too young. She's a baby. You're not doing it. So they didn't support it. No one supported it. And ultimately he just was like, okay, well, screw all you guys. I'm out. And I'm going to go live with these two. He ended up divorcing his third wife. I mean, I think it's just the same story. Each wife, it's like he wasn't mentally okay. He dealt with a lot of demons, I found out later, and ultimately ended bad for all of them. You know, that he divorced everyone, and
so I mean,
got pretty hairy.
At a young age, you were thrown into kind of the man of the house.
I mean,
you were the oldest sibling. You were you were a boy.
Yeah.
You know, your mom. You're a second mom, right? I mean, did you feel that responsibility when he left?
Yeah. So the second wife left. She moved up to Montana, where she's from. So we had this like distance between them. So I didn't have a lot of influence or, you know, fatherly figure to them. Maybe through a long distance I did, through my examples. But I fell into that early with my siblings, and I didn't realize it at the time. I just, you know, it's just what you do as a guy. Like, my mom needs help, and there's no one else to help, and I'm old enough to help, so I would help. And it shaped me, and definitely turned. A lot of the experiences I had moving forward were affected because of that, and I had to grow up quick.
So what is the divorce procedure in that church, or how's it looked upon?
Yeah, my mom was legally married to my dad. The other two weren't legal. They were just in the church. The records were in the church, not by the state, I think. So he had to officially divorce my mom. So my mom had more pull when it came to like trying to get child support and like taking him to court and things like that, trying to get help, because he never once paid child support. Never. And she later tried to get some from him, and he always played it off like he had nothing. And whether he did or not, I don't care. You're a dad. You have kids, 11 kids.
Sheesh.
Go take care of your kids. Who cares about your wife? Like, my mom didn't care if she got money. It was about, I have to get my kid braces. Like, will you please just give me some money to help with these stupid things that I'm taking care of myself, because I'm a single mom with you know, who had nothing when she got divorced, because she had a husband that at least provided, and she was a massage therapist, luckily, you know, and that was something she decided. He was like not about it, because she's massaging other people, you know, and men, and he hated that. He's a very jealous person, but she was strong enough to say, I'm going to do it. So she put herself through school and got her license. Luckily, that's what if she didn't have that, she tells us to this day, like, we would have had nothing. I mean, we already almost had nothing, but it would have been way worse. So
at what point did you start to distance yourself from polygamy and kind of the whole community and the religion?
My dad, obviously, he was around for probably a few months, maybe a year after he left. And I think the last time I really remember was he took us on a trip up to Montana to see the siblings. And I just remember going with and hanging out with my siblings and then coming home. And that was like the last time I really remember like hanging out with him. And then it was just kind of like a fade out. Like he just stopped calling. I stopped being in touch with him, and I never really thought much about it. It just happened. And so I just say at that point, like, you know, as I started to see how it affected our whole family and how everyone just left, that's when I was like, you know, I started to figure out that this isn't what I wanted. But at the same time, my family's out there, cousins, aunts, uncles, my mom, she still goes out there, still wants us to go out there, still wants some kind of stability in our life.
When you said, what do you mean by out there?
Out there, the group. The All-Red group.
Like going to church?
Going to church. Yeah, the church is
Where
in
is
Bountiful.
That? Bountiful.
Yeah. And so we would go to church and, you know, but I don't know. It's just what I had to do. I was too young to make decisions, but I slowly figured out it's not what it just wasn't. I don't know. I had a bad taste about religion in my life because I have all these friends that are in the LDS church and people that, you know, believe so strongly in it. And then I've got all my aunts, uncles, family out in this the group, the All-Red group. I even have an uncle that was on the one of the authorities out there, and I think he was a second counselor. And so you just think like these guys believe so strongly, and they believe so strongly. Like, what do I do? I'm stuck in the middle.
I'm sure there's a lot of overlapping doctrines too. I mean, since it kind 100%. Of spawned, you know, from the LDS church. So that would probably make it even more confusing.
And I grew up, a lot of my friends thought I was LDS because you go into my mom's house, there's pictures of Jesus. There's just, it looks like an
Book
LDS.
Of Mormon?
Book of Mormons, of course.
Wow.
Like we all read the Book of Mormon. Like it's just the Book of Mormons. I
said the Book of Latter-day Saints, you mean? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, seriously. But so, I grew up being taught everything that the LDS church teaches you. And so I knew the basics. I didn't go much beyond that. But my friends all thought I was LDS until I got to about the missionary age. And then people started asking if I was going to go on a mission. And I was like, well, I'm not actually LDS. And it was just like blew people's minds because I was going to seminary because my mom wanted me to. But I was very just like I don't know. I was super angry as a kid. I just was pissed off. My dad.
I was going to say this had to start affecting you as a teenager. Sure. You know, like how did it?
Yeah, I was just always pissed. I just remember always talking to my friends, man, I wish I could just run into my dad because I would kill him. Like I would.
This is like
straight up.
13,
I just want to
14, 15.
13, 14, 15, 16.
So you just felt straight abandoned then. So
yeah.
So you said it happened kind of naturally, but there was obviously something inside of you that just felt completely abandoned.
Yeah, and one of the turning point for me was I was 14 years old, and we were actually hiking up to American Fork Cave,
Timpanogos Cave.
Yeah, hiking up to Timpanogos Cave, which is like something people do once or twice in their entire life.
Right.
And this was my first time. We go up, and I think I was 14 and maybe 13. It wasn't. It was like 2 or 3 years after, but it felt like forever. It's such a weird time span between 10 and 16. Like so much happened. But as we were coming down the trail, I go whizzing by my dad and his fourth wife, who is now divorced, the third wife. So he's just got her now. That one that.
So 16. She's like what, 19 now?
Now she's like 19, 20, which is crazy. Jeez. That's so young.
Yeah.
And so I go whizzing by. I'm ahead of the pack, and my brother goes by, and she notices him, the fourth wife.
Okay.
And she goes, Scott, and I hear that, and I turn around, and I'm like, Dad, holy crap. And my first instinct was like, this is great. Like, I gotta get back in touch with my dad, you know,
because at that point you didn't have the hard feelings.
But at that point you're just like, maybe my dad just
wants your family
is doing
back.
Other things, you know, there's no like hard feelings or like he doesn't want me yet. So when I see him, it's like any kid would think like, oh, I get my dad back because I see him. But it's like, okay, there's 3 years of time that have gone by that he hasn't seen you, so there's something going on. But I didn't think about it. And it was actually a pretty cool time. Like my mom came down right after. She sees him. It's like this. She had done court things with him up to that point, so she had seen him. But I think it had faded out for last year, and and she just says, and it was kind of good. It was like he was really nice. It was like we can, we're gonna get back in touch, and my mom goes, so can I get your number so we can call you? And he goes, oh no, let me give you my number and I'll call you guys. And we're like, great. My mom, I'm sure, was like BS, but in my mind, I'm like, awesome. My mom's not gonna tell me no. Like she's gonna be like, yeah, your dad wants to see you. We'll see. And 2 weeks go by. And nothing, not a call. I mean, obviously there's no other way than texting those days, but not a call. And I just remember about 2 weeks go by, and that's when I was just like, screw it. I hate this guy. Like, he clearly doesn't want to see me because that was his chance.
Man, that ripped open a wound, didn't it? I mean, 2-3 years without seeing him.
Yeah, and I grew up after that just hearing stories from my grandma, my cousins, constantly about how he wanted to see me. And you hear these things and you're just like, as a kid, you're like, well, what? Like, he's not doing anything about it, but you just start to realize that actually he doesn't want anything to do with you, because he could do something. And I would go to my mom, hey, I'm hearing that you don't want us to see our dad. She's like, Tice, I could care less, honestly. You're probably better off not being in his life, but I don't care if you see him. And she would tell me that, and because I was confused for a long time. And so I was hearing these other stories, and I'm just like, no, I don't. What the heck? Like, I don't believe anything I'm saying. I believe my mom, especially with the way that all of us kids have turned out. Like, my mom raised us and is an amazing person, and you just have to look at that example.
So your relatives were telling you the opposite? Your relatives were saying that your dad wants to see you, but your mom won't let him?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, and these are cousins from my dad's side who they have contact with him. And I mean, it was like never like I'd go see them. It was just like one time one of my cousins came and saw me at my house and told me that's like, hey, your dad really wants to see you. Like, will you let him? And I just remember thinking like, no, I don't want to see him.
Wow.
So what's crazy is you think about that. You've grown up your whole life inside of this culture of almost secrecy, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're not allowed to talk about it. We don't want people knowing what's going on. So this happens. You're a young boy. I mean, you don't have an outlet at that point. You're not able to go and talk to people about it. So what happens to you? I mean, like, how do you start to, I don't know, the word self-medicate?
Yeah.
Right? Like what do you do?
It was crazy because 14, the last time I actually see and kind of decide I don't want to be like him, and not really having a father figure, anyone to bounce these emotions and fears off of. I naturally just wanted, it wasn't even like I wanted to, it was just, I was like, this will be fun. So I started drinking at 14, and that was the first time I got drunk, and it was just like, and that was so much fun, but I was just doing it, and it wasn't a very often thing. It was like once, maybe twice a year at that age, like I just have a couple good memories of just having fun with my cousins. Did you keep that a secret though too?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I would never tell. No one knew but my people that were participating. Yeah. I had a very clean image growing up. I had a lot of demons, a lot of feelings of just hate, but I always kind of tried to hide that. And I came across as someone that wasn't, dealing with much. And so I would find ways to just cope with it. And I would drink, and never got involved with drugs or smoking, although I tried, but like, it was never, drinking was just always something that I did, and it was a lot of fun. And I never saw it as a bad thing, really.
How'd you get alcohol at 14?
Oh gosh.
There's usually good stories behind it.
I was always the one that I never got caught. Like I was so good about being sneaky and lying, which is, as bad as that is, it's true. I was like really good at it. My brother would always get caught. And so it was when he would get caught. Anyway, I had cousins that were old enough, and they would buy us beer. Jeez. And there was one time I was 14. I mean, I think this is the first time I really got drunk, and my cousins, they probably got it illegally because they were like 18, 19. However they got it, I don't know, but they had it, and we were at a ranch, and they're just like encouraging, like, yeah, you want one? And we were like, of course. And so me and my cousin, so young, it was one of the funnest nights I'll never forget. Like, it was so much fun. And so, yeah, we just,
I mostly got it that much, if you can remember it. So that's good.
Yeah, I didn't go blackout. But I can tell you I did a lot of really stupid things. But
so were all of your siblings, did they have, I mean, were you all kind of fighting the same battles? Was everyone trying to keep up appearances? Everyone trying to just kind of go through this on their own? Or did you have more of that feeling kind of as the older sibling of all of them?
Yeah, you were almost a parent at that time, basically.
Yeah.
Do you feel like did your other siblings, were they kind of going through the same thing as you?
Yeah. It's so interesting because they have their own things they were battling, especially my younger sisters. Like, they're growing up without a dad, and a dad is so important to a girl's life. And so I had this relationship growing up with my siblings where I was this father figure. And so I kind of missed out on being a brother, and it kind of has affected us as we've gotten older. Like, we're now kind of, I feel like, kindling this brotherly, sisterly, brother relationship. But before that, it was, I was this father figure, and I kind of treated them like kids, I guess. And it was there wasn't a lot of sympathy. It was just like, I don't know. It was a weird way to grow up, and having to grow up that quick. And I think that was a huge part of why I did a lot of things that I did, especially with like girls and drinking and just trying to find other ways to
You're
get
trying
that
to numb
crap out of my mind. Yeah. Right. And just the hate. And that's the other thing. When I drank, the hate was gone, obviously. And it was just fun. And I don't know, doing what I wanted.
So I'm curious because like I've gone through a divorce like Cam has. Like, I'm curious if you feel like
as kids.
Yes. Sorry, as kids. Not currently.
Yeah. You still love Jenna. Is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, we're still good.
Back that up.
We're still good. But do you feel like the polygamous lifestyle going through that, and do you think it's different than someone whose parents just get divorced? Like, do you feel like the polygamy aspect of it had any other impact on you?
It definitely, I mean, the confusion with religion, but having siblings that, you know, you're best friends with, and they're your brothers and sisters, and they are no longer living with you now, and they live in Montana. I remember my mom and her became really close after the marriage.
So you lost more than a dad.
Oh, I lost, what is that, 7 other siblings? I wasn't very close with the third wife's kids. They were pretty young. But like I said, we each had our own siblings growing up. All 4 of us were super close to each other, all 8 of us. And they went off to Montana. My mom and her second wife became really close after that, because they started to realize my dad was pitting them against each other, and they hated each other when they were married. My dad would talk bad about each of them to each other, and they just hated each other. Can you imagine that? And then they get divorced, and they realize, actually, you are okay, and he's the problem. And so they did the best they could to get us together, and we'd do it once or twice a year, and we would just meet a lot of the times in Idaho Falls, get a hotel, swim together, and it was so much fun. And there was one time that it was time to go, and we're at a Walmart, and we run as fast as we can, get in the car, and locked our moms out of the car. All of us kids were in the car just crying because we didn't want to leave them. Like, we didn't get it. Like, why can't we be with our brother and sisters? And so, yeah, I think there's way more to it. Not that, I mean, everyone's got their
it just adds so many different
levels. It just
levels,
adds a new element. Like, you're losing so much more. Like, obviously, when most people get divorced, depends on how it goes, but you usually have your siblings. We didn't have our siblings, and luckily we've stayed somewhat close. We used to write each other, like write letters back and forth, and then now with social media, it's a lot easier. And that's actually one of the sisters in Japan. And I tell people that I have a sister in the military, and they're kind of like, you have 3 sisters and they're all home. Like, I don't get that. And I just never go into the details. And that's what I mean by reading between the lines. You can start to figure things out if you actually dig into my life.
Well, the interesting thing, I think, for being the oldest kid in a divorce, especially as a teenager, it's hard. Generally, at least in my experience, you're the one that the parents are talking to, and maybe speaking negatively. Yeah. And that's not something that kids are equipped to deal with, because they still love both parents, right?
Yeah.
But see, the thing that makes me sad about the story is it almost sounds like you're maybe the only kid that ever really established a positive connection with your dad at some point. Mm-hmm. And so you lose that.
Yeah.
Right. And I know that it sounds like it gradually deteriorated, obviously, but
it wasn't very gradual.
It's a lot to lose, you know.
Yeah,
you
totally.
lose your dad, like you go from being the favorite, the oldest kid, having that connection, going hunting, right, to him being abusive or verbally and mentally abusive to your mom, getting protective of that and drinking, and then he leaves, and you lose, your brothers and sisters. Like that's heavy stuff.
Yeah, a lot to it. That's for sure.
So the drinking thing doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
think anybody would drink. It's like, or whatever it would take to just forget for a minute.
Yeah.
And so last time you see him on the canyon, had you ever seen him again before you got the phone call or the message on Instagram that he had taken his own life? Or had he been out of sight, out of mind since that time?
I mean, yeah, definitely not. There was 2 other times, and so I think I was probably like 20, 19. At this point, I'm like over it. Like, I don't know, probably it was after high school, and I just remember just being like, screw that guy, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I went through a lot of crap, and I've dealt with a lot of demons, like literally demons that just ate me up inside and really affected me, that I had to let that stuff go, and so that I could move on with my life. And like,
demons mean like bad feelings towards your dad, or like feelings like that you weren't good enough and he left because you weren't good enough, like, or all of the above?
That's a good question. I don't know. I just remember being haunted, like literally. Anger, like things about me would come out when I'd get mad that I was like, that wasn't me. And I still feel like I deal with that to this day, like anger issues, because of how pissed off I was for a lot of years, and how I like literally would kill this guy if I saw him. Because I was like, you left my mom, you left us with nothing, you won't pay child support, you're lying to everyone about my mom. All these things just built up over the years to the point that I was so mad. But by the time I got to 20, I talked to a lot of other fatherly figures that helped me through a lot of things and let me bounce, because I have a great mom, but like I was never able to really talk to a man and figure, ask advice about life. So I feel like I don't think I necessarily moved on, but I started to feel a little bit more sad for him, and just kind of was like, not necessarily forgiving, but just
more empathy.
I'm not going to be so mad at him anymore. I'm more just going to feel bad for him.
Was there something that caused that? Was there like a wall you hit, or were you just sick of being pissed? Did you see like a therapist or a counselor? Like
I hadn't seen a therapist. Maybe I did. I can't remember. But no, I don't know if there was like a defining moment. I remember being...
Maybe it's just getting older.
I don't know. I think it was just affecting me. And my mom was like she would talk to me about it. And I'm also dealing with my mom's emotions through all this.
Right.
Like, and just like you said, when your parents get divorced, you have to hear a lot of the things. And like, she would get sad, and I could tell, and I just have to ask her about that. But, and then just beside all of that, my mom got remarried.
I was just going to ask you that.
Side note.
Like, has she moved on? And
no, before I guess we go into seeing my dad again, my mom gets remarried out there. I always say out there in that church, the group.
Wait, to a polygamist?
To a polygamist.
What the?
Yeah. And he happened to actually be one of my dad's best friends when they were out there, like one of his best friends. And he already had 5 wives. So my mom was number 6. Yeah, number 6. Can you believe that? We're pretty established as a family already, and now we're being thrown into a new family that's well established, and we're these new. I knew these people. I was actually best friends with one of his sons, and becoming brothers can affect a friendship really badly, because now you're comparing everything you get to each other and how much time your dad's spending with you. And I never considered him a dad. It was just
How old were you when this happened?
I think they got married when I was this would have been like 14. That's why I'm saying, like, so many things happen.
Wait, so you moved to a new place with the other families?
Well, they all lived in on a street. There's 3 homes. 2 of them we bought a home close, but we were probably a mile away, half a mile away. And so we were close, but we didn't live in the same house. And that was, as I'm older, easier to hide that way. And I think they preferred that. But that's a whole new element to the story. My mom got remarried, and my brother and sisters were super affected. I mean, I was super affected by this because he was not a nice person. I was bullied pretty hardcore by 2 of his boys, and they were my friends before, and then as you add a brother element to this, I don't know, they picked on me so bad. And I was a baby because I feel like I blame that on not having a dad around us. So I was a total mama's boy.
Sure.
And there's so many times where they just would scream at me and just make fun of me and beat me up. And it was just like, I don't know, those were some hard times.
Were those brothers?
I was never as good as them, honestly.
Right.
They were really good at things, and maybe that's why I'm good at things now, because I was always trying to live up to the standards that they had, and they were really good at a lot of things. Like I remember wakeboarding, Lake Powell. They are so good at wakeboarding. Picked it right up. It took me like 50 tries to stand up on a freaking wakeboard. Like, think about how easy that is. And I was razzed really hard for things like that. And
does that still go on today? Like, are they still together, your mom and?
No, they divorced. So basically, I feel like she married the same kind of guy. And
maybe for sure, it was their best friend.
Yeah, and so.
So it's interesting as I'm listening.
That's
to this, it's like
so many details.
Because I'm trying to connect dots and hear things. It feels like it would be easy for you to, when you hear polygamy, it is like you can blame that for the divorce, right? Because it's like if my dad would have only have had one wife, how different would my life have been? It could
have been easier.
You know what I mean? And the second go around, it's like, would I have been bullied if my mom would have married a man with only one wife? You know what I mean? And so I think it's kind of uncovering some of those emotions. Like you're attaching the meaning of polygamy in your mind are all of these negative experiences. It wasn't necessarily just the fact that he had multiple wives, but it was all of these experiences that you're attaching that meaning of polygamy to.
Yeah. So of course I want to hide it.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk
and
about
get away from it.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the brothers and sisters, which is really the only positive thing that came from it, from what I can tell. Every negative thing really can be linked back to that lifestyle.
Yeah, and I hated it, I feel like it truly tore the second family apart, because here's this guy, same thing as my dad, had all the white, and he just was like done. He's like, I can't even imagine having that kind of a lifestyle, 6 wives and that many kids. Then that's just a lot of pressure on a guy, and you have to take care of all of them. And so I'm sure it built up, and it probably happened to my dad, it happened to him, and they're just like, we're out, and there was just the final straw, and he's like, I'm divorcing everyone. But the crazy thing about that is that, from what I heard, he wanted to divorce all of his wives but stay with my mom. And he was not about us kids. Like, he was all about my mom. She's beautiful, and the new wife, and just young, and he was ready to just say, I'm going to divorce everyone. Let's just stay together. But he was a horrible dad to me and my siblings.
So let's go back to then.
Yeah.
The last time you saw your dad, so you hadn't heard from him for a while. Your mom gets remarried. Mm-hmm. Does she get divorced? So then you saw your dad,
So after all that, my mom got divorced again.
Okay.
But during that divorce, she got pregnant with her 5th child with him, and that all fell apart while she has a baby, and that just added a whole new element. But she's the best. Her name's Haley, and she's seriously one of the best kids, and we're so glad from what the garbage we had to go through, she's the best thing that came out of that for sure. And I've got a really good relationship with her. But the last time I actually saw my dad was when my sister, who is in the military, she decides to come to Utah and kind of say goodbye to everyone, because who knows what can happen. And so she comes and stays with my little brother, and then she decides to go see my grandma Henderson, who we just don't have much to do with, because every time we go, it's the same story. Oh, if you only knew the truth. And so she goes to our grandma Henderson's house, and she is talking, and then my dad walks in the house. She didn't know he lived there. I'm like shaking. I've been shaking like this whole time telling this. Deep breath. So he walks in the door, and he's just like, Angie? And she's like, oh my gosh, Dad, like she hasn't seen him in a long, like she's in Montana, so she's way less likely to run into him like I did. This is like 10 years after the divorce, and he comes in and he looks terrible from what she told me, just super skinny, and catches up with him, and she ends up coming back to my brother's house and is like, I need to talk to you and Scott, my brother. And so we all go, we start talking, and she's like, I saw Dad today. And we're like, what? This is crazy. And she's like, yeah, and he's this and that and doing this, and he lives at grandma's house, and apparently he's super poor. And we're like, yeah, we've heard that, and maybe he is, who cares? And she's like, I'm gonna meet up with him tomorrow. And so, do you guys want to come? We don't have to tell him you're coming. And we're like, we're like kind of not sure, and so finally we're like, let's just do it. So he had no idea we were coming. She sets up the time to go meet up with him, and we get out of the car, and he gets out of his car, and me and my brother are way bigger than him, like a lot taller, a lot bigger, and it was just weird. Like our little dad, he's just this little guy, and it was like, hey, how you doing? And then at that time, like I said, I was over it, and it was just like, what's up? It's just another.
Do you remember his face? Like when he saw you, did he make any was there any reaction?
Oh, I found out while my sister was at my grandma's, he had pictures of us everywhere in his room, like all of us kids. He kept up with us. Facebook had just come around, and he kept up with us, and whether he printed them or not, I heard his sisters would print pictures and from Facebook, and as we do life events, so he knew what we looked like, and I had no idea what he looked like. And so I see him, and it was just kind of this like weird thing, and it was kind of my way of just like, I want to just hear your side, I want to hear your story. And so we sit down, and he's just, the whole time I'm listening to him talk,
just looking for closure.
Yeah, in some way. And it was kind of just another way to rebel a little bit. And I didn't tell my mom, and we sit down and just start talking. And the whole time he's talking to me, I'm just like, this guy is full of crap. I feel like he's lying to me. He's BSing me about everything. And any question I asked, it was always the same kind of thing that I'd hear from my grandma. It was like, I have nothing. I'm so poor. I would love to be involved in your lives. Your mom won't let me. Like, your mom wants me out of your lives. And I'm like, well, at this point, I would too. Like, you're a loser. And so I'm kind of figuring these things out as we're going. And we finish the conversation. And so he ends up getting outside. We get to the car, and he goes, can I have your guys' number? And I just flipped the script. And I said,
little payback.
Yeah. And I didn't have that in mind, but I said, no, like Angie has your number. If I want to get in touch with you, I will. And it was like, okay. And I was just like, because at that time I truly didn't want to stay in touch with him. I believe that we were better off without. I feel like I turned out, as much of the crap I went through to get to my 20s, I feel like I came out way better than I would have if he was around, for sure. And there's no doubt, especially the way things have turned out moving forward from that. But anyway, my brother ends up getting baptized before we saw my dad. He had a girlfriend that converted him, and he's always been a way better kid than me. He's just a good kid. He loves religion, and he latched onto the LDS church and got baptized and was ready to go on a mission. And so he, at the same time as my sister was going into the military, he was going on a mission. So he sends my dad an invite to the farewell without telling anyone. And so here's my mom, who hasn't seen, maybe she's seen him in court, but still never got a penny from him. And my sisters, who have literally no real memories, just maybe a few, but like nothing that they care about. And he shows up to this farewell. And I was the first one that saw him, and I had just seen him like a week, maybe, I don't know how long, but it was pretty recent. And I was just like, and I see my grandpa, his dad, and I'm just like, hey, you guys, totally caught off guard. Like, why are you here? And all I'm thinking about is my mom and my sisters. Like, holy crap, this can't go good. I remember my sister, the oldest sister, saw him and she left. She's like, I'm not doing this. My other sister, the youngest from him, she just was like really happy to see him, gave him a hug and was crying, and my mom saw him. And so we go through the whole farewell. It's whatever. It was super weird. We all talk about it later, and nothing really came from it. In fact, I thought that maybe he would try to be more involved again. In a way, I was like, maybe this is his way of, I mean, he came around, but I think he got a pretty good feeling, especially for me and my sister, that didn't want to see him, that he's just like, it's like, we're adults. I'm an adult. You've had 2 years. Why do you now show up to my brother's farewell? I don't know. I sometimes I wish I had answers to all these things, but these are my experiences and this is what I saw. And I just, I don't understand it. But that was the last time I actually saw my dad before he had committed suicide.
So when did you finally meet your wife then?
Pretty close after that.
Okay.
Yeah, I met her like right after my brother left on his mission.
Okay.
See, I'm super interested in that part because it's like
now I'm adding another person into the element.
Well, and just like, I mean, everything you've seen up to this point with marriage,
has
not ended well.
I thought about that,
and not only that, but whoever you eventually are going to meet and marry, you've got to tell the story to. Mm-hmm. You know, so yeah. Tell us about meeting your wife, because
a funny thought about that is before that, because of what I went through and these horrible, just negative experiences on marriage I've had, I knew how I wanted to be and I knew how I wanted my relationship to go. And that's just good. And I wanted to be that person my dad wasn't. I wanted to treat my wife like my mom wasn't. And
your wife, single.
Wife.
Singular.
Not plural.
Okay.
And so I just remember, as cocky and maybe, I don't know, more confident as this sounds, it's like, I just was every girl I dated, I was like, you are going to be so lucky if you marry me. I'm going to treat you like a queen. I'm going to treat you so well. And I just remember thinking that, and it was never like, never thought about, I'm going to marry this girl. It was just like, it was more just like future thinking, like when I meet that girl, like she's going to be lucky because I'm going to treat her really good. Does that sound really cocky? You guys are laughing like it's like, wow, dude, toot your horn.
I mean, to me, it sounds like a pretty normal thought, especially with, you hold your mom in very high regard. Mm-hmm. You love her. She was mistreated, and you want to do the exact opposite.
Well, in your situation, it's really easy to know what you don't want to do. Yeah. To not what you don't want to
Got
have.
a lot of examples of what not to do.
I think we can both relate a little bit on what you don't want your family life to become. Yeah. Right. And so it's easy to have that example to at least set that standard. So I can understand why you would think that.
Yeah. So I apologize to anyone out there that thinks this guy's full of it. It was just a genuine feeling of just like, I'm going to treat my wife so good and I'm going to make sure she's never treated the way that I saw my mom treated. I had enough bad examples. And so, I don't know, it was like 22 at this point. My brother had just gone on his mission. So yeah, if those numbers line up, 21, 22. And I was kind of done dating. I was like, I know what I like and I know what I don't like. And I seem to keep finding the same type of girls that I'm not, I don't see a future with. I was consciously trying not to date. And so that
was your first mistake right there.
Yep. That's when something's coming. And so I was at work and I worked at a pure water company to get me through college. And I looked really scroungy and in my work clothes, my work shirt, with a patch, I looked like a worker. So longer hair because I'd given up, and I just was letting myself go. So I had a hat on, and I was like, I'm in Provo. At that time, I was working in Salt Lake, and I was like by the University Mall, and I was like, I got to go get some hats to cover this mop up. And so I went into the mall, and I walked into PacSun because naturally that's where the best hats are, and I walked right past my wife. Which is crazy to think. Walked past her, didn't see her.
PacSun always had hot girls working at it.
Of course. And that's what's funny is like, oh, you met at the mall. Of course, you were there picking up chicks. It's like, actually, no, I wasn't. I
just didn't want to get a haircut.
PacSun and Buckle, if you remember Buckle.
Yeah, good old Buckle.
Nothing fit there.
Yeah, so I walked right by her, and she's like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, I'm good, thanks. And I just kept walking, and I went up to the hats, and I started trying some on, and she came up to me. I've never asked her, why she came up to me. Most guys would think because they want to talk to me, but she was actually just being a good employee. Came over to me and started asking, she goes, hey, so you're looking for some hats? And that's when I looked at her and I was like, wow, she's beautiful. And so instantly started asking more questions than I needed to and flirted a little bit. So she goes and helps. She goes, I got to help some customers, goes and helps the customers. And the whole time I'm thinking I got to get her number. So I grab the hats I like and I go up to the counter, and a few people are in line behind me, and she starts checking me out. We're just chatting, and the whole time I'm like, how am I going to do this? When am I going to do it? And I can't get the guts to do it because I'm afraid of being rejected and being embarrassed because there's people behind me. And so it was like, as she's giving me my receipt, it's like, okay, see ya. Like, all right, bye. Smiling at each other like, see ya. And she's like, you're an idiot, bye. And so I turn around and walk away, and I'm like, immediately I was like, I gotta go back. So I get out to the car and put on my new hat, gave it about 5-10 minutes, and I walk right back in, and I go to turn the corner, and she tells me now that she actually saw me coming, and I didn't know that. So her head was down writing. She was pretending like she didn't see me, and so I went straight up to her, and she pretended to be caught off guard when I was like, hey, and she turned, oh hi. And I was like, I couldn't leave without seeing if you could give your number out at work. And she's like, of course. And it was all smiles, and she wrote her name and number down on the receipt, and the rest is history. That's how we met. And it was just like, it's pretty easy after that. Never had any I shouldn't say that, never had any reasons to, well, shouldn't say that. Problems, reasons to break up. There was a lot of those, but it was really good compared to other relationships I had where it was like you took breaks and you like, it wasn't right. And, just, it always felt good. And I always had like a 2-week mark with most girls that when I hit that 2 weeks,
you just knew that it wasn't worth
something they do would bug me. And I just was like, hey, well, they're not going to be, I'm not going to marry them. So I can still date them but I'm not going to marry him. And so with her, I hit that 2-week mark. And I remember with my best friend, I was like, dude, it's 2 weeks and I'm not bugged by her. Like, this is good. This is a good feeling.
This is the one.
Yeah. So I learned pretty quickly that I think she was the one. And I kind of knew pretty early that I was like, I could marry this girl. But
did any of that scare you? Just because it sounds like if you don't get past 2 weeks, you never really have to tell your story. But it's like when you find the girl, eventually you're going to have to drop this bomb.
Yeah, and it happened way faster than I anticipated, way sooner. It was our third date, and I had taken her to Arby's, and we got a Jamocha shake, and that was her first question, was like, this is coffee. What is he doing? So in her mind, she thinks I'm LDS because, like I said, I had a good
She's
image.
Like, have fun in hell.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry.
So she actually orders one with me, naturally.
Party.
Yeah, so she was a little confused and kind of had that thought, like, is this not coffee? And so she drinks it, and she takes me to my house, and she just goes, I have to ask you something. And I could kind of tell right away. I was like, oh, man, where's this headed? And she goes, why didn't you go on a mission? And that was like the last question I expected. Wow. I was more just thinking, like, why aren't you LDS?
All because of Jamocha shake.
Why didn't you go on a mission? Because she kind of started figuring my story out and realized that I hadn't gone on a mission. I'm saying this is 3 dates in. It's like a week and a half. And I was like, well, wow, this is way earlier than I thought. And I just said, I'm actually not even LDS. And she's like, what? I thought you were. So that was her first like red flag. Like, I like this guy, but no way. And I don't want to waste my time converting someone. And so she just lays it on me and says, well, like, obviously I like you, but I'm getting married in the temple. So I need to like know if you're interested in the church, or if you're going to like, I just need to know if there's potential of that before we go any farther. And I was like, holy smokes. That's the first time I had gotten it that direct. And so I said, well, I've actually already taken lessons, and I've been to church, I've done seminary, I've done all that stuff. Little does she know how much I actually do know. And I just said, yeah, for sure. I'll look into it some more. And so she's like, great. So then we started dating, and that was, it's a long time before I had to drop the other bomb of actually dating. But,
so fast forward.
Yeah.
You do drop the bomb.
Yeah.
What, 6 months in?
It was like 6 months in. Yeah. We were 6 months into dating, and, she kind of just started to figure it out. I mean, my mom, none of us were LDS. We grew up in
crazy,
Utah.
Though, that 6 months into dating someone seriously, had she met your mom?
Yeah.
Had she met your siblings?
Mm-hmm.
And still at that
still
point,
no idea.
I mean, still at that point, but just, I guess my point is like the culture of like hiding and secrecy was so strong that even at that level, she might have had some ideas, but you would think like that would be pretty apparent.
It's kind of like what he said about editing videos. It's just like muscle memory at that point, hiding it. You know, it's like a natural.
I had my story,
normal,
and I beat around the bush, and so did my family, and things we didn't talk about. It just rushing on by. 6 months. That's a little long. It happened a little sooner than that. She now tells me when she told her family, and I've actually just heard a story like that. They were all pretty worried and like don't date him. Like, it's funny to think about now.
See, if I was her, I would have played that up. Like, he promised that we'd be married for 3 years before he started searching for another one. And
sure. At least 3 years. But I think she more saw the writing on the wall pretty early. I don't remember the exact time when she found out. That's a weird memory that I just don't have. That's like, this is when it happened. I think it just kind of slowly, she figured it out. Just like she kind of figured out I wasn't LDS. It was
and
like,
her parents kind of trusted her with that.
Yeah, they did.
Well, and more importantly, she trusted you.
She trusted that I was going to do something about it, and I wasn't going to go back to that church. She was very worried about that. In fact, her mom was very worried that I was going to marry her and go back and be like, hey, let's get another wife. And that was one of those things. It's like, that just in my mind, I'm like, heck no, I'm not going to do that. But she's new to me. And so anyway, so it was a long, I don't remember the exact moment. I just remember there was a time where we actually Bible bashed a little bit. We got into it because I was like, my mom's still out there. My family's still out there. And so I would bring out the differences, and I would bring out what they believe in, what, the church. You were
still kind of defending it.
Yeah, I defended it a little bit. And so it got pretty rough that night. That was a pretty rough night. And a lot of my past came out about me. And I started talking about, things I had done and who I was before I met her. And like not even that long before I met her. And so I was in this pretty big transition while I was dating her of like being who I was and who I needed to be to marry her. That was rough. That was hard. And I just remember after that, I was like, she was crying, and it was just like this. It was the only time where I felt like things weren't going good. And I literally I was pissed because I could tell she was sad about it all. And I had lost clearly in the Bible bash. and I just told her a lot about my past, and she was crying, and I just like, screw it, and I left. I just got up and I walked out. I remember her yelling at me, "Where are you going?" And I just left. I didn't say a word. Went out to my car, and at that point I was like, "Okay, I got to do something about this. Like, this girl's amazing. I don't want to screw this up. I got to do something about it." So I texted my buddy right there, and I just said, "Hey man, we set up the missionaries. I'm going to take those lessons again." But I wanted to do it at his house because my mom we've had missionaries over. Like, they come, I mean, we become the project when people find out, especially in like my mom's neighborhood. And that's one of the things I hated about it, is that anyone that found out, I became a project. And it was like, oh, let's get them the missionaries. Let's do this. And we're going to baptize them. I'm going to save them. In fact, I had girlfriends that knew that would find out that I wasn't LDS. Some of them would, because they'd get close enough, they'd find out that I wasn't LDS. And one of them told me, like, I had a dream about you, and it was the second coming, and you had to go to hell because you weren't LDS. And I was like, wow, well,
you were eating
that
your
hurt.
Shake, and you're just like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was like, well, that hurt. So I had these experiences
that
just
crazy.
Made me hate religion. And I was just like, so going into dating my wife was hard. And it was like, I just had such a negative outlook on religion with how mine.
Stories like that just seem so crazy to me, so foreign. Like, we've heard a bunch in here, of people just kind of being verbally, I don't know what the word is, bullied with the church or with religion. And it's just, I don't think people like that exist still, but obviously they do.
So now, I mean, as you've lived through it, so obviously it went good with your wife. You guys got married. Yeah. You made a sweet proposal video. Got 8 million views.
Yeah. It was all right.
You guys have 2 awesome little boys.
Yeah. Great kids, which is very funny.
Like, how are you using your past to influence your present and your future?
Yeah. So, like I said before I met my wife, I was always telling myself, like, And it was more of just like an affirmation. Like, I'm going to treat my wife good. Like, I'm going to make sure and so when we got married, I did. And, look at my proposal. I would always go above and beyond. Don't
look at the proposal, because our wives might not like us anymore. Like,
I've gotten that a lot. A lot of my friends are just like, dude, I hate you, man. You know, and I'm
really
always
uncreative, and I don't like you anymore.
Go check out what I did for my wife's 26th birthday, and 26 of all birthdays, and then you can hate me.
Will you stop it, please? Stop it.
But anyway, so my mission was just always to just treat my wife like way better than obviously way better than my dad did, but like just try to always go that extra mile and just be an example that there are still good dudes out there. There are a lot of amazing guys, but with what we see a lot of the times, examples growing up, there's not, there's the negatives more portrayed than the positive. And so I was always like, that was kind of my mission, is doing that. And then obviously when I became a dad, that was even took it to a new level of like, and then I have a son that I'm just like, I want to just give this kid everything I didn't have and give him those experiences and let him feel that love that I just grew up without. And so that my whole life is kind of just formed into this like mission of treating my boys good and my wife good, but this is life, and that's not always the case.
It's crazy. I just had like a thought on maybe why you're so good at storytelling and why you enjoy it so much is because you want to control it.
Yeah.
Your ability to control the beginning, the beginning, the middle, and the end. I've been telling
stories my whole life.
You have. You've been telling stories, and you felt like you've been a victim of a story. It's been out of your control. But yeah, I mean, all of your past, that has totally led you to what you do.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's the first time I've ever heard it that way, or that's cool.
It is though.
Well, and they're all positive now too.
That's what I'm saying.
You're telling like really great positive.
That's why he's so
stories.
good, because I want to treat my wife like a queen. That's a story. I want to be there for my dad. I want to be there for my boys. Mm-hmm. All these things, you just want to bring positivity. So you're telling these awesome, anyways.
That's cool.
It's an interesting
I'm going to take that and run with it, because I think you're right.
So I have one final question. The trauma, that doesn't go away. Like, have you done anything in the last however long to deal with it, or has it ever surfaced since being married? Do you ever kind of have anything come up?
It's funny. I feel like, I don't know, things were really good. Like, things went super well with me and my wife. In fact, it was so funny because like the first, and this isn't to tell you that things aren't good. Things are still good, but
we're all married. We know
it gets
how it
hard.
goes.
But like, there was a good 2-3 years that I just kept telling, I even told my mom once, I was like, something's got to go wrong because things are going way too good.
Right.
And I mean, that's the Nickelback song, right? I'm feeling way too good. Something's got to go wrong. And so I kind of I just always thought that, because it was
You're
really
waiting
good
for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. I started to deal with things I didn't really understand what that was happening at the time, with like just losing motivation, losing I don't know, not caring as much, just kind of like. And I always remember I've been a very driven person growing up, and just like always tried to go above and beyond in every aspects of life, and just try to get good at anything I do. And I started to get a lull, and just like, and it was when my Haley got pregnant with my son, and I still remember. We were vlogging our doctor appointment, and we were in the room, and I'd always do time lapses. I didn't find this footage till later. I would always speed up the footage, so I never listened to it, but I found this footage later when a company reached out to us about featuring our pregnancy. And so I went through it was a TV show. And so I went through the footage, and I was listening. I just stopped to listen to our conversation of us 2 years before. And I just sat there and I was like, babe, I just don't know what's wrong. Like I'm just like not driven. I'm just like down. Like, I didn't quite understand what was happening. But then my dad kills himself, and that I was like, oh, it's not going to affect me. It's fine. And I had my son at this point too. So even though my dad was running, like I still had this mission of like treating my dad or my son and my wife good. And then when he killed himself, like it started to affect me in ways that I didn't expect it to, when I started to realize that I'm never going to have someone that I can go to get fatherly advice and how to be a dad.
Right.
No, truly, like there was always like there was never like a hope. There was never like a hope that we would rekindle our relationship. There was a wonder, like, I wonder if that'll happen. And that died literally. And it just, so that wonder, it's not like I wanted it to happen.
The door just closed.
But just like that hope, it's kind of like having just like maybe it will.
It's that little boy inside of you still waiting for the relationship with your dad.
Right. It brings it to the surface.
Yeah.
Because that trauma is there.
And
it will always be there.
Yes.
It's literally gone.
Yeah.
And no one can feel that. It's just the facts. And so, I mean, I just remember being invited I would always get invited to like general conference priesthood session with friends because they knew my situation, and I would go, but I didn't think too much about it. I would just go, and I'd see the dad. I would be sad. I'd be like, man, it'd be cool if I had a dad, and I would cover it up with jokes a lot of the times. And so I remember it was the priesthood session after that, I got invited, and I just said, I don't think I can go this year. Like, I can't see that. And I go to the store to go do some yard work. I'm getting some stuff at, I don't know, Home Depot, and I'm in the aisle by myself, and I just started crying. And it was like, I grew up very angry, pissed off, that I feel like emotionally I was just gone. Like, I didn't ever cry. My wife always gave me crap about it. Like, she didn't think I cared a lot of the times because I wouldn't cry. And I just started crying, and I just texted my wife. I was like, I'm in the aisle and I can't get it together. And I texted her about the whole general conference thing. I was like, this is crazy. Like, I didn't expect it to affect me. Like, I don't know. I was just sad that that's actually gone. And so that turned into, a lot of other things that I was dealing with like, I don't know. I think that just slowly just turned into depression.
Yep.
And I would hide it. And my wife, you live with that person, and the only person that saw it. And in fact, a lot of people that know me that are hearing this are like, really? No way. And I think you hear that about a lot of people that end up with depression is, I hide it really well. And so, but obviously my wife had to deal with it. And so that affected a lot of, it affected our marriage. It affected me with my boys, and it got pretty hairy for a while. Like, I didn't know how to handle it. And
you were probably scared just thinking about your dad too. Just like,
oh my gosh, that's exactly.
Am I going to go down that same road? And
well, all of a sudden death became
depression
real.
Can be hereditary. I mean,
yeah. And
right?
I found that out when I actually ended up doing therapy, that I like bipolar. I think that I might have, and I think he had, and that's obviously genetic. And so it got really bad. And I started, to the point where, and I didn't want to get help. Like, I felt like I could take care of it myself. But then I realized, my wife literally made me go to therapy and made me in fact, she made the appointment. And as I was doing these sessions, I started to realize that, my dad, as much as I was, that was the biggest thing, is I didn't want to become him. And I started to feel like I could. It's potentially, like, I may not have a bunch of wives and that pressure, but I felt like I could easily go down that road. And what makes it so that, what makes it so I don't kill myself one day? Like, what do I have to avoid to get to that? And I kind of just saw that fear of, what if I end up there as well?
It's a big motivator.
And I started to realize through these sessions that he went there because he didn't get help.
Yep.
Like, I talked to my cousin after the death, before the funeral, and he told me a lot of stories that I didn't know about my dad, and he was affected really negatively growing up by a lot of things that he dealt with, and that shaped him, and he never got help for those things. And so he turned into who he was and became who he was and ended up ultimately where he did. And so I was like, okay, this needs to happen. I needed to get help. And this is how I'm going to not become or end up where he ended up.
So now, as you're through it, what would be your message to someone who's, not to anyone specifically, but what is your message to people this touch, whether they're in polygamy, good relationship, bad relationship, like what do you think you could say to someone that could impact them based on your kind of experience?
Yeah. Me becoming who I've become, on a positive end, like not becoming who my dad is, because I feel like he went down a really dark road and I'm going a different way. I feel like I scripted my life. Like I kept my mind right. I would read books, was trying to stay positive, learn, and just try to not being victim of my circumstances is the biggest thing. I decided that I'm going to change this. The buck stops here. Like I'm not going to continue this trend that I think continued through even before his generation. And I just decided this is ending here and I'm going to be positive. And so I feel like when I say I scripted my life, like I was doing the affirmations and like I knew how I wanted my life to turn out and it's going that direction. And so I feel like I've had control over my life. I could have easily gone down that same road and then it continues on to my son, and then who knows when it stops. But I decided to not let that be the case, and I decided to change it. And it was just a decision I made, and that goes with the successes I've had in life, family relationships, and even beyond that, just like deciding what you want in life and making it so, I guess, and like going for it. And that's in everything, like a career, athletics. Like if you want something bad enough, you can do it, and you can change and it doesn't matter where you came from, what kind of life you grew up in, you can do whatever you can script your own life.
I love it. Let's end with that one. I love that, no matter where you come, you can control it.
Yep.
So you can script it out. So,
and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yes, seriously.
Right? Other people will help write your story for you.
Even to this day, it's hard, but you have to do it.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Tyson, thanks for coming on, man. That was
amazing.
Awesome. Thanks for being willing to tell your story.
Yeah.
And if you like it, you can follow him. You have your vlog, right, that you and your family still do?
Yeah, we've got our vlog. It's called Henderfam, and it's on YouTube. And then Instagram, Tyson J. Henderson, if you want to see.
Husbands, don't tell your wives about that channel.
It's definitely more of a woman following. We have a lot of ladies following the journey.
Now I've got to compete with him and the Hallmark channel.
Yeah.
This is bull crap. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.